All right, let's get into it. Have you ever wondered how a really cool idea actually makes it into the real world as a finished product? Well, today we're going to break down two totally different philosophies for getting stuff done. And we're going to zero in on a really specific leadership role, the Scrum Master, that's kind of changing the game for how modern teams work. So let's kick things off with a question. I want you to picture building a massive skyscraper. You absolutely need a detailed, rock-solid blueprint before anyone even thinks about digging a hole, right? Now, switch gears and think about launching a tech startup. The market's going to change, you're going to get feedback from users, and that brilliant idea you started with might look completely different in just a month. So, should you manage those two huge projects the exact same way? Of course not. And that simple difference, that's the key to everything we're going to talk about. You see, at the heart of both the skyscraper and the startup, there's a project. Projects are the engines that turn a big vision into something real you can actually use. But if they're so important, how do we make sure they don't just, fall apart? Well, for a long time, it all started with the blueprint. So let's start there, with the classic approach. We call it traditional or predictive project management. The whole philosophy here is simple but really powerful. Plan everything, and I mean everything up front. Just like that architect's blueprint, the goal is to nail down the entire scope, the timeline, and the budget before a single bit of work actually begins. And the foundation for this whole classic model is something called the work breakdown structure, or WBS. The idea is actually pretty straightforward. You take this giant, overwhelming project and you just break it down, piece by piece, layer by layer, until you have a list of tiny, manageable tasks. It's all about creating this perfect, crystal clear map of every single thing that needs to get done. Okay, so once you know what you have to do, the next big question is, when do you do it? And that's where this comes in, a project network diagram. It puts all those little tasks in order and it shows you which ones depend on others. And that longest chain of tasks that all depend on each other, that's called the critical path. And that tells you the absolute fastest your project can possibly be finished. It's kind of like the project speed limit. So you've got this beautiful plan, this perfect schedule, but how do you know if you're actually on track? Well, you use a tool called earned value management. It's basically comparing three things: what you plan to do, what you've actually spent, and the value of the work you've actually completed. If those things don't line up, you get this brutally honest, data-driven picture of whether you're behind schedule or way over budget. There's really nowhere to hide. And look, for decades, that blueprint model was king. It worked. But then, as technology just exploded and markets got way more unpredictable, that super rigid, plan everything in advance approach started to show some major cracks. I mean, what if you didn't know everything at the beginning? What if your customers changed their minds halfway through? It became clear that a new way of thinking was needed. And you can literally see this shift happening in the industry's own rulebook. The old way was like a super detailed recipe. You follow the steps exactly, no questions asked. The new way? It's much more principles-based and adaptive. It's less like a recipe and a lot more like a compass. It doesn't give you turn-by-turn directions, but it gives you a true north to help you navigate through uncertainty. So if you're not following a giant blueprint, what do you do instead? Well, one of the most popular answers to that question is a framework called Scrum. The whole idea with Scrum is to just ditch that one giant long-term plan. Instead, you work in these short, super focused cycles called sprints, usually about 1 to 4 weeks long. At the end of every single sprint, the team delivers a small working piece of the project. They get feedback and then they adapt the plan for the next sprint. It's all about making progress in small steps and learning as you go. Now, this is a really important point. If you're going to completely change the philosophy of how work gets done, you also have to change the style of leadership. It just makes sense, right? The traditional boss who kind of directs traffic and tells everyone what to do, that just doesn't work in this new, fast-moving, adaptive world. You need a whole new kind of leader. And the difference is, well, it's stark. A traditional project manager, they have direct authority. They make the plan, they call the shots. A Scrum Master, on the other hand, is a coach, a facilitator. Their job isn't to tell the team what to do. It's to enable the team to do their best work. They make sure the rules of the game are being followed. And most importantly, they help the team figure out how to solve its own problems. So the Scrum Master's whole mission really boils down to process and people. They are the guardians of the Scrum framework. They act as what's called a servant leader, which means their job is to clear any roadblocks that are slowing the team down. They protect the team from outside distractions, and their ultimate goal, this is the cool part, is to help the team become so good and so self-sufficient that it doesn't even really need them anymore. And this isn't just theory. Check out this quote from a real project case study. When a project manager allowed some big changes to happen in the middle of a sprint, which is a huge no-no in Scrum, the final analysis was really clear. He failed in his primary responsibility. That's a powerful reminder that a Scrum Master's first loyalty is always to the process, because a healthy process is what protects the team and lets them do amazing work. So, we've got the old way and the new way, the blueprint and the compass, the manager and the coach. So, which one's right? Well, in the world we live in today, the real answer isn't about picking a side. It's about building a modern playbook that has room for both. The reality is that the smartest companies out there aren't choosing one or the other. They're using a hybrid approach. They might use that traditional blueprint model for the big picture stuff, like long-term planning and budgeting. But then, for the day-to-day execution, they use Agile to let their teams build, learn, and adapt quickly. It's really about blending the structure of the old with the speed and flexibility of the new. But I have to be really clear about this next part, because it's more important than any tool or framework, and that's culture. You can't just show up on a Monday and say, okay, everyone, we're doing Agile now. It doesn't work like that. Agile methods, and especially the Scrum Master role, can only truly work in an organization that genuinely supports teamwork, that trusts its people, and then empowers them to take ownership. Without that cultural foundation, you're just going through the motions. So if you're looking for one simple way to wrap your head around what a Scrum Master really is, this is probably it. Think of them as being both the referee and the coach of the team. Like a referee, they make sure everyone is following the rules of the game, in this case, Scrum. And like a coach, they help the players improve and they clear the field of any distractions so the team can focus. But they don't get on the field and score the goals themselves. They empower the team to play its best game and win together. And that really leaves us with one last question for you to think about. As you look at the challenges you're facing, at your next big project for your team or your company, what do you need more of? Do you need the certainty that comes from prediction, or do you need the resilience that comes from being able to adapt? The answer to that question is going to tell you exactly which playbook you need to open.